Hello, this is Ann Jones, and if you're here, it's because you're ready to start Module 1 for the course Curriculum Development ED621. When you log on to the web page, the first thing you'll arrive at is this announcements page. So always take a look at that and see if there's anything you might have missed. I do send announcements out as emails as well. The next thing on the list you'll find is the syllabus. If you're ready to start Module 1, you should have already read the syllabus and know where to find it for future reference. The next thing you're going to want to think about is the materials. There are several required and recommended materials for the entire course. That would include 621A, 621B, and 621C. But what you need for this section, 621A, is this quick flip questions book for the revised Bloom's taxonomy. It's an excellent little tool to have. I use it often when I'm out doing supervision. It gives you some really good ideas about how to think about writing objectives and how to measure those objectives. So this one you really need, so get that as soon as you can if you don't have it. The next thing we want to think about is going to now into our course content. So what you'll find when you open the course content is the informational introduction to the entire course, which I hope you have watched already. The next thing on the list that you will find is the overview of 621A. So that's a short overview of just this section of the course. Very informative, very helpful. If you haven't watched that yet, you should stop working on Module 1 and go look at overview of 621A. The next thing you have on your list is backwards design learning plan, which is what you're going to learn to create in this course. And I created one here for this course before I started teaching this course. So this will give you an idea of what a course design looks like, or a curriculum for a course. And then the spring schedule for this course is the next thing you find. If you haven't looked at that, you really need to, so you can start doing your own planning and also thinking about how much time you have to spend. This course moves pretty fast. You have an assignment due each week, and so you really need to stay on top of things. So take a look at that. That has the entire course on there. So if you're not taking a C yet, and you shouldn't be, unless you're ready to student teach next semester, the whole schedule is there. We want to focus right now on Module 1, and you'll see it's right here. And for each of the modules, they look similar. They have the objectives and the tasks before you even open them. So we can see by reading here underneath our module, the objectives for this module are to navigate the course webpage, which we just did together, locate and identify K-12 standards, identify, evaluate, analyze, and unpack established standards, those standards you just found, for writing objectives, and then your tasks so that you can be skillful and knowledgeable about those objectives are to read the course syllabus, read the course schedule, read or watch and use the provided resources inside the module folder, which we'll take a look at, unpack standards for one content area and one grade level, and complete the checking for understanding quiz. So unpacking standards for one content area and one grade level is not writing objectives. You will do that in Module 2. Module 1, we need to find those raw standards and turn them into something that we can use. We're going to unpack them, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Where do you find these raw standards? You can find them on the Alaska Department of Education webpage. The best place to probably find the standards for you to work with is go into the webpage of the school district in which you are working or plan to be working, and use their standards. They may be slightly unpacked already, and that's okay. If you're looking for something that maybe is a little bit like science or social studies right now, some school districts haven't settled on those standards, and the Alaska Department of Education sometimes has them posted, sometimes they don't. You might need to go to the national level to find those. The National Council for Social Studies has a web page, and so does the National Council for Science. So those are the places you would look, but certainly start first to find those raw standards, grade level expectations, student learning goals, whatever your district calls them. Start with your own school district webpage. And we're choosing one content area and one grade level. That means if you are doing practicums right now or are planning on doing practicums soon, pick one grade level and one content area. For instance, you might choose to do first grade writing. One grade level, one content area. Do not unpack all the standards for first grade and do not unpack all the writing standards for K-12. You may choose to do third grade geometry. That would be one content area, one grade level. You may choose to do citizenship for 7th grade. Okay, so pick a content area and a grade level. The purpose of this is not to unpack all the standards in the universe. The purpose of this is to give you practice at unpacking standards in a smaller context, one content area, one grade level, and then apply that skill to other content areas and other grade levels as you go on through the course. So let's go ahead and see what's inside our module. 3 things for Module 1. There'll be more things in other modules as we go along, but this one's pretty straightforward. You have a checking for understanding, which is a short quiz. It's not graded. It doesn't count for or against you. It's an opportunity for you to check your own understanding. You could do it before you start the module to see what you already know, or what sort of as a preview, and you should certainly do it after you've finished the work in this module to check that you've understood everything properly. If you do the checking for understanding and you're very confused about what the answers should be, please let me know. The other 2 things you have in this module are the slides about unpacking standards, which I'm going to talk through in just a minute, and then where you submit your assignment for the end of this module. There is a due date on this, and it's on your schedule also. That's the due date for the first attempt. Curriculum design takes lots of practice, lots of work, lots of talking with each other about it, and lots of iterations. So as long as your first attempt is turned in by the due date, you are not late. If you don't turn in a first attempt by the due date, you are late. What happens very often is you make an attempt at some part of the lesson design process, and I have feedback for you. I have things I want you to think about and consider, or I have things that need to be changed because the processes aren't correct. And I send them back to you. And we continue to work on those until we're both happy with the product. So just make sure you have it in by that first due date. Anything that's turned in by 9 o'clock in the morning, any day during the week, I will get back to you by lunchtime that day. So the best thing to do is just to, make an attempt at these activities, these parts of the process that you're going to be engaging in. I'll give you feedback, and then you work on it and turn it back in. And we'll keep doing this, you and I, until we're both happy with your product. And that goes for the entire course. So let's go ahead and look at what we're going to be doing with unpacking standards. When you find your standards for your content area and grade level, you're going to find them written as things that students can know or can do. So when you look at these standards, make sure that, and this is where the flip book comes in real handy, make sure that you think about what they're asking the student to know or to do. Some standards include thinking or doing that is very difficult to measure or explain. What does it mean to know? Right? And how can we measure if a student knows something? These things are very, very difficult to extricate. So if you're writing objectives that say no, I will make you rewrite those. Do we mean can retell? Do we mean can explain? Do we mean can describe? Those are ways we get at knowing. So we don't want to use that know verb in our objectives and when we unpack our standards. So I was saying, know is a vague term. There are many ways to know. So what do you mean? When you have the answer, if I ask you the question, what do you mean to know? When you have the answer, that's the verb you use. Appreciate's another one that you'll see in standards. And how can we know if someone's appreciating something? So think about that one. And also recognize. What do we mean by recognize? We don't want to say a student will recognize the importance of something. So what do we really mean by recognize? And this is where using your quick flip book comes in very handy. So your task for right now is to unpack a standard. So what does that mean? When we unpack a standard, we want to make sure that the verbs are defined and can be measured. We're not using words like know, appreciate, and can be understood by kids and families. We'd want to take any teacher ease out of them and make them easy so that our students can understand and their families can understand. And that they're relevant. The learning is something the child should be able to do and is important. This doesn't have to do with culture or a child's interests, but that when we say something's relevant, it's something that that child of that age, of that pedagogy, can actually do, and that it is important work. So let's look at a standard. This is Standard E from Social Studies, National Council on Social Studies, and it's about citizenship. The standard reads, a student should have the knowledge and skills necessary to participate effectively as an informed and responsible citizen. That they know the important characteristics of citizenship, there's that know that we don't want to use. Recognize that it's important for citizens to fulfill their public responsibilities, so we know we want to change that. Be responsible to exercise political participation by discussing, there's a doing verb, building consensus, doing verb, and voting. And you can look at the rest of this, but what I've done is I've highlighted all the doing verbs in red, because those are things we can measure. Those are things that kids can do. The know and the recognize are the knowing part, and we're going to have to change those. They don't work. We don't know what those mean, and kids and families won't know what those mean either. So those verbs are highlighted in red, and it's from these that I'm going to create my objectives. For now, because this assignment is not to write objectives, for now I want to rewrite the established standard in a way that's kid-friendly, clarifies the verbs, and can be used to write measurable objectives. So the established standard at the top again, a student can explain the important characteristics of citizenship. I changed know to explain. And then the other ones I thought were okay, and I changed that standard into 3 things that I can actually work with now. These are clear. I know what the verbs mean. They're understandable to kids and families. This is around 6th grade, so I'm thinking about a 6th grader understanding these. Okay, so what you don't want to do is make this complicated. The point is to make the standards understood by kids, understood by families, and measurable, and then ready for you to write them into objectives. So we just want to go from something that's rather complicated like this and has verbs that we can't define into something straightforward that we can measure and that we can explain. So that's your task for this first assignment, to go from something like this that you might find at your school district webpage or on the Department of Education, something that's rather complex and complicated and has these verbs that we can't define, to something that looks like this. Now you're not writing the objectives yet. You're not writing this I will or a student will. We're not writing those yet. We're just clarifying the standard, and that's all I want you to do. So when you turn in, you're going to have more than this. This is one standard. If you do the content areas 1 grade level, you're probably going to have 5 to 15 standards that you're going to turn into me. And let's go back and talk about where those go. So after you've done this work, you will come back and you are going to open this, unpack standards, and you submit them here, okay? And I will give you comments. Now, that first submission probably won't be where we both want it to be, and I will give you 0 points. I have to give you 0 points so I can leave feedback. But as I said, as long as you have everything in by that first due date, we will continue to work on them together. So you turn it in right there. And then please also take time to do the checking for understanding. Okay, you just click the begin and it'll give you the question. And that's a good review for this module. After I have told you that your unpacked standards are good and ready to go, then you may move on to Module 2 after your first assignment is approved by me. So some of you may work at a faster pace and others of you may work at a slower pace. And that's sort of the point of this. The course is designed to be 4 weeks, but if you got this and you've got the unpacked standards down, and I say you're good to go, then you'll move on to Module 2. And that's when I will talk to you again. I will see you in Module 2.